War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice. Thank you for tuning in to War Room, Gwinnett County. I'm your host, Antonio Jones. We got a lot to go through today, so we had to bring on a special guest who is an advocate for school choice, and I believe that having school choice as an option would be great, and just overall, because it'll put a little bit more pressure on people that are in positions to do the right thing. So, had to bring in a special guest, Holly Terei. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know we've been trying to put this together for quite some time, and we finally got our schedules to match up. So I'm excited to have you on the show. I've been watching some of the things that you've been doing here in Gwinnett County, also with the group that you have that empowers parents to come together and, exchange ideas and talk about their experiences with their children and everything. So first, I want to start with just giving you an opportunity to let people know, who you are and why you decided to get involved, and tell us a little bit about the organizations that you're involved with.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. You are pushing such quality content that is so relevant to what we are facing in Gwinnett County and really across the nation. And we need more voices like yours. So thank you so much. And thank you for having me on here. Yeah, I'm super passionate about school choice. For the last decade before COVID, I was very involved in the special needs community and did a lot of grassroots advocacy work for that. And during my time, I would go across the country going into elementary schools, teaching kids about their autistic peers. On the flip side of that, that gave me a unique perspective on what was going on inside America's public school system, going from school to school, state to state, and seeing the vast differences, the disparities from inner city to your higher ranking suburbs. And it really gave me a lot of valuable information as to where we are as a country. Educational disparities is real. And I saw it with my own two eyes. Now you fast forward to COVID, school shut down. I have 4 kids that were all in the public school system at the time. 2 in particular are special needs students with IEPs. One is in a self-contained autism classroom. So the pandemic, like many, it hit us personally. My child's IEP wasn't being adhered to. And so I started putting together a group of parents that were willing to protest. And through that, it was interesting to see so many other parents who do not have children with special needs or do not have children with IEPs suddenly come to the realization of, oh my goodness, my child is not getting what they need from the schools, And for special needs parents like myself, that's all we know is to fight for what our kids need. That's all we know. It is in our blood to fight and advocate for our children and their educational needs. So to see that on such a grander scale, to know how this was going to impact schools across the nation, I was like, this is bigger than special education. This is bigger than just my 4 kids. What I'm seeing just in my household, my 4 kids, is something that is expanding across the nation. So we had to do something about it. And through that, I became very vocal. I shifted my focus on here in Gwinnett County, on what pertained to my kids, and then ultimately reflected on many other families. And it's been quite the experience. But through that, the one thing that I couldn't understand was, while my kids were at home doing digital learning during COVID, the little girl down the street only missed like 2 weeks of school, and her private school stayed open the whole time. Her private school didn't mandate masks the whole time. Her private school kept going along like, life as usual. And I watched my kids start to regress. I watched my kids start to suffer educational loss. I watched my kids start to suffer mentally. And yet these kids that were going to the private schools weren't experiencing the same things. So right
Right.
here in my own backyard, I'm watching that educational disparity deepen and widen right here in my own neighborhood. Imagine what that looks like on a national level.
Yeah.
Now,
So, quick question. When so before the pandemic, did you have any other concerns? Because I saw a lot of, or well, we see a lot of violence going on, and
mhm,
I'm the father of a special needs daughter as well. She has ASD, and my wife decided that she wanted to bring her home. I guess right as the pandemic unfolded, but now we never knew of all of the violence. Maybe it wasn't being reported, but I know the pandemic revealed a whole lot. So was that in conjunction with maybe your concerns for child safety, as well as the IEPs and all the other stuff that you're speaking of, the masking and all of that?
I would say, speaking to me personally, I did not feel or see um, that violence specifically to Gwinnett County until we really went back to school, until this school year. And
Okay.
as you know, there were policies that were pushed. Now, I can't say that that's not the case for the rest of the country. I can't say, me personally, I grew up in the inner city of Cleveland, Ohio. And in the early 90s, we were, I believe, second in the nation to implement vouchers. I was a voucher kid, thank God, because I do believe it changed the trajectory of my life. So for a majority of my schooling, I was able to not succumb to the inner city schools and the violence that was going on there and the lack of education, quality education at the time. And I was able to go to a private school on a voucher. And like I said, it changed the trajectory of my life. So when I go and I think about the school choice movement, whether it's a special needs child, violence in the schools closing and not opening, the overreaching mandates, the list goes on and on and on, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, I'm a huge supporter and a huge advocate for parents know what's best for their kid. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what their reasoning is, or even if I agree with their reasoning, if they say that their child is not getting the quality education that they need, then they should have the right to be able to take that child to a place where they're going to provide that education, that environment that's most conducive to those needs. And
Right.
so it can branch out to whether the school is a failing school district or there's too much violence and they have policies like we're experiencing in Gwinnett County, or the child is subjected to bullying, their IEP isn't being met, or just simply, a zip code shouldn't be a zip code shouldn't be the outcome of somebody's education,
Right.
and so I wanted for my kids, when I saw what was happening with the pandemic, to be able to access and experience what I had when I needed an immediate road out as a
Yeah.
child in Cleveland. And so that's where, as we keep fighting these different things that are coming out, and we're seeing the uptick of violence in our schools particularly, um, it's not a perfect solution, but man,
Yeah.
every answer I have to everything is school choice,
Yeah.
school choice, school
It
choice.
it essentially will give the parent the leverage to do business, because I mean, if you're going to a particular store and you don't like the service, then you have the option to take your money
Hmm.
and go elsewhere. Now, like you're saying, we're locked into these lines of like you're zoned here. So a school system, or a school particularly, is allowed to be in a failing state and still be getting funded.
You're absolutely
That's
right.
that's not even a good business model anywhere. And we see some of these same things going on in other areas of the country. That's another
Yeah,
conversation. But it's like, allow these systems to fail. It's like if you send your kids to college, God forbid, and you're funding them and they're failing out of school. At some point, you're gonna start saying, "Wait a minute, hold on. I can't keep sending my money up here. You're not getting your grades and doing the things that you're supposed to. You're gonna have
yeah.
to take a different route. It's a terrible business model. In my view, in my opinion, to continue. You know, my kids are homeschooled, but for the kids that are going to school, you know, that money should be able to follow them where they go. So if you decide to
Yes.
bring all your kids home and say, hey, maybe this system is not working, and maybe I don't have the funding right now to drive across town and the buses don't go to work, take my kids, you should have the ability to take your tax money
Hmm.
out of that system and bring it home, you know?
Yes. I so agree. And you know, we both know competition is good. And we have enough empirical evidence to support the fact that where there is more school choice, there is less of what we are seeing here in Gwinnett County and other parts of the country. Because competition causes the private and the public sector to compete and ultimately should have both shape up. So if our district in particular was looking at our children as something that they needed to compete for, then they would be sizing these policies up with what options are surrounding them. They would be taking a look at, instead of children just succumbing to the new, let's say, discipline policy at Gwinnett County Public Schools, they would have to instead look at the data and say, you know what, X amount of parents are saying that this is not what they want for their children. These X amount of students have a very good probability of removing themselves and ultimately their funds and applying them elsewhere. Maybe we should relook at what we're trying to do here. Because it's a business. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the mighty dollar.
Yeah.
Money talks. And so we know that competition is good. We know that it's good for not only for students and parents to be able to have that educational freedom to go where they choose, but it's also really good for the education field itself. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in school in areas like ours, I'll keep using as an example, is a lot of educators are just up and leaving the field altogether, or they're moving, or they're having to make some kind of drastic change because they don't have a lot of other options to go exercise their giftings and abilities elsewhere. If we can incentivize the private sector, creating more job opportunities within the private sector for these educators to then say, you know what, I'm tired of getting pummeled every day. I'm going to take my abilities elsewhere where there's now a competitive market for my pay and for what I bring to the table, because it's no longer a monopoly created by the public school sector. And so competition is good. Many are trying to push a different narrative, but we have the
Yeah.
data to support
Yeah.
competition is good.
Yeah. Competition always works. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking, and let's say for instance you having problems out of a particular student at school. Now they started, the administrator and the principal and everybody that's surrounding, even the board, starts to think, if we don't make sure that we get the problems out, maybe into an alternative school and away from these students, then we're going to crash this whole school system out for like a handful of people potentially. That we can just give them the option, hey, you need to go to the alternative school because you're getting ready to have a whole mass exodus of parents, which equals money,
Mm-hmm.
leaving out of here.
Yeah.
So we need to rectify the problem. I say this all the time, Ms. Holly. We run sports better than we do education. Now, if a football coach or a basketball coach was coming to a school, what's the first thing they're going to look at? And I look at this in terms of the superintendent and other people. You look at that coach's record, that coach's philosophy, and you hold them to it. You don't get to come in. You wouldn't get to go to the University of Georgia and go behind Kirby Smart, and they're going to allow you to come in here and have 2 losing seasons. It just don't happen.
Yep.
Your recruits, everything, all that has to be on point, and we have to believe in your philosophy.
Yep.
And if it don't work, we not waiting around for your contract to end and all this other nonsense to go on while our children and things are being injured. But you know what to fix that? Having school choice as an option, because you know what? When these parents start pulling their money out of schools or whatever, even if, let's say for instance, they didn't give me the option. I homeschool, but my money has to go somewhere. It's not going in the dumpster fire school. It's going to go in a school where they're doing the right things by their students, and my money is going to go to an investment situation. They don't do that in the stock market. Who throw their money in a burning building? It don't happen. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think school choice and what you're doing is a great option, and I hope that we can, get something passed. I don't really know about if the legislature could help us there, if they already been on board. I know that you have several different allies down there, and I applaud that. Can you tell us about? I know you have a group, private group. It has almost roughly about 2,000 members online on Facebook. I think I'm a part of that group, and I get to see some of the great things that are being posted in there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So Gwinnett County Parents for Quality Education is under the No Left Turn in Education umbrella. It is our local Gwinnett County chapter. It was birthed out of what we are seeing. Is a kind of like it's really a call to action group of like-minded parents that are all pursuing quality education for their children. You know, just like No Left Turn in Education, we are a nonpartisan organization. And our group is nonpartisan as well. But one of the things that, we just cannot get away from is the fact that we have one side of the aisle that is pushing a particular agenda, it is pushing these policies, we have the teachers unions, AFT, NEA, they are funneling money into the Democratic Party that are then pushing these policies onto our children. And then we have one side of the aisle that is trying to fight against this, trying to offer solutions. And so, it's one of those things where it's we don't want to create an echo chamber, but at the same time, lines have been drawn and our children are being pushed to the front lines. And so what I think makes our group very special is when it comes time to go, there's no convincing anybody. There's no let's debate. There's no, this is what's on the table. This is what's at stake. This is what needs to be done. And so that's why I find our group to be very special. We are very active and engaged in our local legislature. We have the tools and the resources that No Left Turn in Education provide for us, as well as that covering. And so I would encourage your listeners, those that are watching this, if they are ready to get engaged and are ready to fight this, find us on Facebook. We also have a mailing list, like a newsletter that we sent out, get you on that as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, we can keep fighting these educational issues that we're seeing. And I see them all the time serving on the National Board for No Left Turn Education. I see it with serving on the state board as well. I mean, this is not just Gwinnett County. This is our whole nation. K through 12 education, like you said, the schoolhouse is on fire. It's on fire, and we can't be trying to put out flames while the kids are still in the schoolhouse. We need to have immediate access to educational opportunities so we can get them out and then deal with the fire. And one of the narratives that they will constantly push is that if you're pro school choice, then you must be anti-public school. And that's not the case at all. I'm pro quality education for all. And so, any I'll go as far as say any teacher, any educator, any school board member, any lawmaker, any public school district that believes they can meet the individual needs of every single child every single year is a liar. If they're really in the business of raising up and watching and producing successful citizens, community members, preparing them for the real world and all of that it entails, then they would be honest and admit that no, we cannot meet the needs of every single child. And and then I'll just take it a step further, and then usually the narrative turns into, well, and this kills me every time, if we pass school choice, then everybody's going to leave. To which I say, well, let's stop there. if you're worried that everyone is going to leave your school or leave your district,
Mm-hmm.
then there lies your problem.
Right.
That's the conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that you want to entrap students in a system that if this
Yep.
passed, everyone would supposedly leave.
Right.
Um, and then the conversation always goes into the next where I have to point out, you know what, we have states like Arizona, Florida, and all across the Midwest that have passed expansive school choice legislation. And there's no data to support that there's like this massive leaving of the public school system. Most parents, they are happy enough with their school system. They are. But I'll tell you what, just having it implemented in a state sometimes is all that it takes, like we said with competition, for
Yes.
school systems to shape up and parents, to see the fruit of that. I know a lot of parents that say, this isn't really my bag. I have a great school system. Some of the school systems in the surrounding areas are fantastic. Why would school choice benefit me? And I said, well, school choice would ensure that your school system would stay a good one. It would ensure
Yeah.
that school system is going to continue to work hard to retain your tax dollars, your students, and these educators. It really is a win-win. And last, another one that I hear all the time that the teachers unions push is, that's public money, and public money shouldn't follow the student. And interestingly enough, you brought up, universities, and I like to also point out preschools. Here in Georgia, we have Georgia Pre-K, and that's our tax dollars. You get to sign up for Georgia Pre-K, you get X amount of dollars, and then you get to choose where your preschooler goes to school and use those funds. So it can either be at a private preschool, it could be at the public school preschool, it could be at any of these other preschools that are part of the program, right? You got the money, you get to choose. Now we fast forward on a college level. You apply for the Pell Grant, for example. You have this money in your pocket, and now you can choose: do you want to go to a state university? Do you want to go to a private university? Do you want to go, you know? But there's a big difference when you start talking about K through 12 education. Now all of a sudden it's like, no, 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 no. We can't let parents have access to those funds. We can't let parents decide where we're gonna. And so there's a deeper agenda hidden in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, ultimately, these are the most formative years of our children and their lives. And what happens in these little period of time in their life really does solidify so many outcomes, from even down to the way they vote. And
Yeah.
so they're not going to want to give that up very easily. So
Right.
here in Georgia, it's been highly politicized, the issue of school choice. But on the grassroots, I don't care if we don't agree on anything else. I can guarantee, though, me and any other parent will agree on the fact that we all want a quality education for our kids. End of
Right.
story.
Yeah. So
And so,
go ahead.
yeah.
So you made as part of your statement just now, you were saying that parents were concerned about people just leaving. So the question is, why would they want to leave? It's
Mm-hmm.
because people don't leave good places. They stay in those places. But like
Mm-hmm.
you say, it's a big entrapment, and they should have the option of leaving if it's not a good place. It's just business. It's
Exactly.
like you don't keep going to the same hamburger joint that's giving you a nasty hamburger when you show up, or terrible service. You take you and your money and your family, and you're able to go elsewhere. And if
Exactly.
for nothing else, it will encourage, it'll put the option on the table and the card on the table with these administrators and these people that's running these schools and the superintendents. Like, look, you getting ready to crash out a school over here. If this school folds, then you lose this amount of money. When you start
Mm-hmm.
talking to people's money and stuff like that, and that'd be some type of a general penalty that's associated with it, they start to move differently. And right now,
Exactly.
they get to go in, Holly, and I was talking to Jared on the last live that we did. They get to go on here
ruin your kids' opportunity and have them unsafe for 18 months, and then the system get to say, "Oh well, let's try somebody else." And what if this person comes in and ruin your situation for 18 months? There's got to be
Mhm.
some type of a remedy, and I'm 100% on board with doing it because this is business. You know, when you handle
Mhm.
business and you got choice, school choice of where to go, then people start reacting quickly. But it's also something on the table. I think it's Jared was telling me there was a Supreme Court case in Georgia that had to do with oath of office. And a lot of these people are raising their hands on the county levels, and they're not fulfilling their oath. So why should the citizens have to wait a whole entire election cycle to get you out of office if you're not upholding your oath? You know, it's the same thing. If you're not
Yeah,
doing your job and you work in McDonald's or wherever, you know, you get fired. You know, they're not
exactly.
waiting, you know, whatever. They're getting you out of there. And our
Yep.
kids are suffering the injury of this, waiting on another election cycle, and people are sitting on their hands and riding the rules. You know, oh
Yeah.
well, I can't be fired to the next. But these kids are getting beat up. Um, other kids are sitting in there. They're afraid. You know, the teacher can't teach and do their job. We got some great teachers in the school system. I think it's
Mhm.
quite frankly, probably a lot of good principals. But if their superiors are not doing what they do, and if the parents don't have choice, like what you saying, then it's like, what's the motivation? You know, there's
Exactly.
not going to be much motivation. So I had a question for you. So I know you have the group online. Would you be willing to collaborate with other maybe large group members that may be trying to get some of the similar goals? You know, maybe you guys can have the meeting of the minds or something. And that way, when we have content or we have something that we're trying to get done in a month or in a
Mhm.
quarter, we can have all hands on deck. And that way, you know, if maybe something coming from another group, you say, hey, I think this is a great idea. Let me get the people in my group on it, and we need to start getting this out around this time. Or it can be a
Mhm.
candidate, it could be anything. You know, would you be willing to, you know, meet up with maybe some other people? I don't have any people in
Yeah,
mind, but I do think it's
absolutely.
important that we put some of the forces together and try to get some
Yeah.
things done.
Yeah, I mean, working on the grassroots level for as long as I have, I'm also
Mm-hmm.
a consultant for American Federation for Children. It's Betsy DeVos's organization. We are the the solution to AFT, Randy Weingarten, that teachers union, and so we take them head on. But you know, and even with my work with No Left Turn, these organizations, they're fantastic. They have the tools, the resources, and the branding and everything that you need to get the message out there. But and this is a big but, and collaborating is great and that we need to do all these things. That's what I do. But at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, parents, power to the parents. Parents need to find their voice and they need to start advocating and speaking up and speaking out. Groups like the ones I work for, the ones I run, what you're doing, and that is great. We're giving a voice to this. But just like that first IEP meeting that I had, sitting across the table from a band of educators and administrators, and I had to sit there and I had to fight and I had to advocate and I had to speak on behalf of my kid and I had to keep doing that. Nobody else was going to do that for me. There was no, at the end of the day, it was me speaking on behalf of my child and fighting for their needs. And what we need, just in the same sense, is we need parents. We need them to find their own voice and advocate for their own needs. You can go down the Capitol and you can see all kinds of men and women up there lobbying and advocating and speaking on behalf of us. And it almost becomes a just another day at the office for a lot of these lawmakers, just the same face speaking on behalf of the same people. It's not effective. It's not. So, one of the things that I push for in Gwinnett County Parents for Quality Education is that when the time comes, we need faces that are not mine or not the, you know, we need you to come down to the Capitol. We need you to advocate on behalf of your child. We need you to testify on behalf of your child. We need you to be calling your lawmakers on behalf of your child. get personal, share how these things are impacting your student, share how these things are impacting your day-to-day life. And so not to cheapen what we're doing, this is important work. But I think, as conservatives, if I can go there, we have gotten very comfortable,
Yes.
allowing X, Y, and Z to do all the work, to do all of this on our behalf. And it's almost embarrassing, the amount of parents that are just, well, I can't say, I can't do, I can't, oh, my husband's job, or oh, my job. And I'm sympathetic to that. I understand that we are balancing, like, I need to ensure that our future is intact, but also fighting in the now. I get that. But at the end of the day, there is a real battle for the souls and minds of our children. And this could go so many
Yeah.
ways, from restorative justice practices to social emotional learning to the critical race theory, gender theory, trans theory. I mean, all the theories.
They got a
It
lot
just
of
go
bullets in the gun waiting.
Yes, it goes on, and it is coming from all sides, all times. And that is intentional, and that's on purpose. The overwhelming feelings that you're feeling, not knowing where to go or what to fight for, that's on purpose, that's intentional. But as believers, and I'm a believer, I know you're a believer, Antonio, we have been called, we have to fight against these
We do.
principalities that are coming
We do.
against our children. And we have to stand firm in knowing that no weapon against us will prosper,
That's right.
and that we're going to take those arrows for our kids. We're going to take those hits for our kids, because if we don't, who will? Holly Terei?
That's right.
No, that's one day we are all going to stand before our
We are.
Creator.
We are.
And
I
and
just.
he's not going to say, "Oh, well, I guess, no left turn education didn't do their role," or I guess,
Yep.
Gwinnett War Room didn't. No, he's go, what did you do? I
That's
have
right.
equipped you. What did you do with that? And
That's right.
so, this is evil, and I get really upset when I have fellow believers try to tell me that they're not supportive of the school choice movement. And I just kind of look at them sideways and say, well, help me understand this. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't you want an avenue that could pull children out of the grips of the woke indoctrination that is taking place in the public school systems right now, and give them access to a solid, firm, theologically sound education? As a Christian, explain that to me. Make that make sense. And so we need to get real with a
Yeah.
lot of things.
We do. And we can't. You're right. I've been having this same conversation. Just had it. I'm having it all the time about, when the God has not given us the option to sit back and vacate our responsibilities of protecting our families, of spreading the gospel first and foremost, and letting people know that this is a spiritual and a evil battle that's going on, and God is going to be the source of our faith and foundation. But I have seen a lot of people running around here saying, "Oh yeah, these things are gonna happen," and men are sitting back, not really doing much, and it's like we're watching too much football and carrying on and hanging out, drinking too many beers, or whatever people may be doing. This should be priority number one. And like you said,
Mhm.
one day we're gonna stand before Christ, and we're gonna be judged. And my pastor says has said it on numerous occasions. He ain't scared to say it from the pulpit or wherever. Hey, I don't want to be in front of God and he say, "Hey, yeah, you had a pretty good life, but look what you missed. Look what you missed." Or, "Hey, you didn't stand up when you were supposed to stand up and be a loud voice, carry the word, let people know what was going on." And also use your own human action and agency, because we're supposed to be salt and light, right?
That's right.
So the light is the word of God that we're supposed to share and keep him first and foremost. The salt is the preservation of earth. God ordained government to restrain sin. He does that through the actions of people like you and I, and people that support the things that we're doing, like the people that's in your group. Some people have put their jobs on the line. Some people have put a whole lot of things on the line. And, this is not the time to be sitting back and sitting, because nobody's coming to save us.
That's
It's
right.
us, it's me, it's you, it's our pastors, the people that support us, our families that support the things that we're doing. Those are the people that are going to help get us through this.
That's
God's
right.
going to come back one day and save us. What are we going to be doing when he returns? Are we going to capitulate and be folded up in the corner saying, hey, God's going to... No, we have a duty to do. And that's why you
That's
have
right.
your group and you spending your time. And, quite frankly, we're trying to do whatever we can to achieve the
Yes.
goal for our children.
And you're so yes, and unity. We need that unity. We need to all come together. But I guess what the point I really want to drive home in that is that within that, you have to find your own voice. You have to know how to advocate for your own child's educational needs. You have to, and then also, way more important than even that, like you said, is standing firm on your beliefs and what you believe to be true. And for me, that's the word of God. And so, um, you know, if if uh, if it's a if it's contrary to the word, then that's what motivates me. And so, yeah, in all of this, um, it's it's a lot. It's a lot. And, and I've been on the grassroots level for a long time. And I'm sure as you keep working and getting to meet people and hearing these stories, it's a heavy burden to carry. You do start to maybe even at times lose yourself a bit. Like, I got to fix this. I got to save this. And so we know that Christ has equipped us with the tools and the skills, and he has made us for such a time as this, but we also have that wonderful assurance of knowing the sovereignty of God, and that whatever has come to pass through his hands first. So just because things are the way they are right now and God allowed it does not mean that me as an individual, or you as an individual, then just say, well, it just is what it
Yeah.
is. So,
These things are going
you
to
know,
happen anyway.
yeah. And that's what you hear all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard, oh, well, 20 years ago it was Common Core, and today it's CRT, and tomorrow it will be something else. Yes, that's right, because nothing new is under the sun, and the devil likes to, reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. His tactics are no different since the dawn of time. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to hand my children over to an entity
Amen. That's
that,
right.
and so anyways, I just really want to drive home. Parents have got to find their voice. Parents have got to advocate for their children. They got to know, on the grassroots level, I want to educate, I want to equip, and I want to let them go. Do you work advocating for your own child, and it's very similar to what like a lot of people will set up as far as like within a church mission statement or something like that. But there's a lot of truth to be found in that. You first educate yourself to know what are the issues, how can we fight against these, where do I stand, and then equipping our community, equipping parents to know, how do you reach out to your local legislators, how do you get involved at the Capitol, how do you put together grassroots campaign, letter writing campaign, community events. How do you
Right.
do these things? Giving those tools, and then setting them forth to go ahead and do that, so that way in their little corner of the world, their little sphere of influence, which isn't little, but um, they're able to make that difference, to cultivate that change, and to you know, educate others as well. And so, again, I really do feel strongly that all roads lead back to educational freedom. I feel very strongly that that is the solution to so much of what we are seeing here in Georgia. And, and even in Gwinnett County, I found it very interesting that a couple couple months ago, Steve Knudsen, at the board meeting, he had made the point that there's a lot of parents whose children go to Gwinnett County Public Schools that they could send them elsewhere, which I was inferring they could afford to send them elsewhere, but they choose not to because of Gwinnett's stellar status at one time. And so what I was inferring is that even on the school board level, there is a bit of fear that if given the opportunity, parents are going to bounce and they're going to take their kids and their tax dollars with them. And he would be absolutely correct.
Yes.
And so this is the change that we need. And it's not to say that we are giving up on the public school system by any means. I mean, to be frank, I have 4 kids. If we were to pass school choice legislation today, I would probably keep 2 of my kids in Gwinnett County because for the most part, they're getting what I feel that they need, and that is the best, despite some of what we're seeing, that is still the best placement for them. But for my 2 younger kids, no, they would be gone in a heartbeat and they would be going somewhere else that would benefit them better. So
yeah, and Gwinnett County is worth saving. I say it all the time. And what the left, we try not to politicize the show as much, but it's like what you said earlier. There's people that are in places in the board and they have kowtowed to the agenda of people in the Democrat Party. So it's kind of like they have made the divide, you know what I'm saying? And we're now trying to make the choice that's best for our kids. And they figured out that in order to keep or make a lot of the states in America blue, to go with the agenda that we're seeing unfold, is you need to go after the kids, because if they grow up and live a certain lifestyle, they're more likely to be Democrat. That's just the way it is. I mean, and they figured that out. And in order to take Gwinnett and make it blue, you gotta take Gwinnett County. I mean, the state of Georgia, make it blue. You gotta take Gwinnett. That's just the bottom line. They understand that. They've already got Atlanta, but Gwinnett is really where everybody wants to be. What if Gwinnett becomes an incubation tool to make more conservative people? And that's not necessarily Republican. Conservative is a value set. That means you believe in God, family, and freedom, and independence as far as when it comes to, if you want to be an entrepreneur or if you want to work for somebody, you have that option available. That's what being conservative is about. And I would argue if you sit down with most people that they would agree with those things. Now, some people will make decisions based on their carnal mind, maybe something of a sin nature and end up going a different way. But most people don't want their kids. They want their kids to be safe and have a good opportunity. That's why they come into Gwinnett County.
exactly.
But there's a responsibility that comes along with coming to anywhere. You still have to do what they call it, the housekeeping. The housekeeping is making sure that your kid is behaving and doing the right thing and respecting others. That's the housekeeping that comes along. I'm with, I wish Gwinnett would become the incubator of the United States, where everybody would want to come here and say, hey, we need to go here and figure out what we need to do. But the housekeeping is not being done. That's the problem. It's not the fact that people don't want different, people from different counties to come into Gwinnett. We're not getting no housekeeping. And the housekeeping has to be kept in line by a set of rules. Sometimes we got kids, we go in the kids' room. It's like, look, you left the socks, on there. That's housekeeping. They have to be taught that. And sometimes they quite frankly don't want to do it. So that's where our leadership comes in place. And that's where you put the power back in the parents' hand, like you saying, hey, wait a minute. This y'all rules over here at ABC school. Well, my kid need to go to DEF whatever school because, it's not happening how I feel like it needs to happen as a parent. My child shouldn't be stuck over there with that set of rules. I should have the flexibility. So I think what you're doing is a good thing here.
And also to piggyback on that, I think one of the things that a lot of people need to realize is that, this is so much bigger than Gwinnett County. And I think sometimes we just get like short-sighted and just see what's happening in our own pocket of the world. But when you go deeper and wider and you look and you see the teachers unions are funneling, I mean, American Federation for Teachers funneled $18 million to Democratic candidates and to the Biden campaign. And so, I mean, you really have, they also help write the standards, guidelines, and expectations of the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan funds that were then funneled into our schools that also had certain attachments such as social emotional learning, critical race theory, and restorative justice practices, as well as DEI, in order to obtain those federal relief funds. You have to keep them, you have to, like you said, at least admit and recognize that, yeah, all eyes are on Georgia. Why is that? Well, and especially Gwinnett, because as you said, we have 189,000 students in Gwinnett County. I think at one point in time, 1 out of every 10 Georgia voters were a graduate of Gwinnett County Public Schools. Yes, I mean, there's an emphasis from all the way at the top that is funneling down into our school system, into so many other school systems as well. And the biggest threat to that agenda, hands down, is school choice, is educational freedom, hands down. I mean, I will even point out the fact that it was very interesting to watch on a grassroots level our state DOE race. Now we had Richard Woods, who was the incumbent, a Republican, and then we had Searcy, who was a Democrat, and they were both running on the ticket. Now, Searcy, although there was much that I did not agree with her at all about, one thing that she stood firm on was that she was pro-school choice. She was hands down pro-school choice. She recognized and was very vocal on how school choice profoundly benefits the Black community and inner city children. However, Richard Woods, I wouldn't say that he was so much against school choice, but he wasn't as vocal about it at all. And interestingly enough, when the Georgia Educator Association put out their endorsements, they endorsed Richard Woods, who is a conservative Republican, but was mum about school choice. But yet you had Searcy running as a Democrat who fit the bill top to bottom on everything that the unions stand for, except school choice. Because she was pro-school choice, they gave that endorsement to Woods and not Searcy. That is just a snapshot of how much they hate the school choice movement. They hate what it does to the unions. They hate how it dismantles the narrative. They hate how, I mean, data doesn't lie. Always look at the data. They hate the type of voters that school choice turns out. They hate the economic freedom that potentially comes with having students read and raised out of that movement. I mean, there's just so many benefits that dismantle the narrative and what they're trying to achieve. And so here in Georgia, school choice has been so politicized for that very reason, because it will undo most of what we're seeing trying to unfold from the Biden administration here in Georgia and in Gwinnett County.
Well, it will. I think that this school choice being up under attack for all the reasons that you said, but we have a uniparty here, right here in our own state, and I call them the GCP, and the Georgia Corrupt Politicians. What's happening? So we gotta make sure we brand that phrase or that hashtag too, Holly. The GCP, Georgia Corrupt Politicians. So out of anguish and despair, people are able to make money. So what you're doing or trying to do is you're trying to put the power into the hands of the people. Mm-hmm. They understand that if people have the power, the parents, they make different decisions, So this ends off some of the backroom deals, because now the power rests back with the people. And that school choice is such a big option to have on the table. And I don't know why any particularly Republican legislator or person in office would not support that. They should support it, and they should go on the record for not supporting it and they should be able to make their case to the people, come in front of the people of Georgia and say why they don't support that. Why wouldn't you support when you see the despair that's going on in schools, just in here in our state? Why shouldn't parents have that choice on the table? Because we should be able to collapse any school or organization that's not, quite frankly, fulfilling their duty. That money should follow the child.
They definitely support it on the campaign trail. I definitely saw it this last election cycle. But, you know, even here in Gwinnett County on the primary GOP ticket, question number 2 was, would you like to see funds follow the child to charter, magnet, private, parochial, and homeschool? And a resounding 80% of Georgia GOP voters said yes. I don't know what more you need. I think Gwinnett County specifically, we were about 75% of GOP voters. When you go to some other more disadvantaged parts of the state, it was up to 83, 85%. So I don't know what more our local elected officials need to see. I mean, this is a winning issue for really anyone running for office. When we look at in Florida with DeSantis, or no, Youngkin, I'll say Youngkin is another great one in Virginia.
Yeah.
They won based solely on the issue of school choice. You know, here in Georgia, it was interesting. We had Stacey Abrams flat out say, I am going to remove any and all forms of school choice in the state of Georgia, all of it. And that was a real opportunity for Kemp to stand up and say, well, if you're going to remove all of it, I'm going to implement all of it. You know, so I think Georgia is really missing the mark in so many ways as far as school choice is concerned. And what I get told on the grassroots level a lot of times is that Georgia is unique because Middle and South Georgia is just so rural. And, you know, if we pass school choice, you know, where will those kids even go? You know, basically.
Wait, Holly. So they don't think that parents is smart enough to make the best decision and say, well, I know school choice passed. Maybe I can't get my kid over to that school, so maybe I'll wait a couple years. They don't think we smart enough to make the, to make the right decision.
It's incredibly insulting. And again, with my background, I have gone to some of these parts of the country where, it's literally nothing. And then your school district is the main employer for that entire community. That's where you went, your parents went, your grandparents went, your great-grandparents went, and there really is no other option. But one of the examples I like to use is, as a special needs mom, I have a kid on the spectrum, and one of the therapies that a lot of autism parents want is ABA therapy.
Yes,
and it's a very expensive therapy.
It is.
And for the longest time, Medicaid did not cover it. So if you wanted ABA therapy, you had to first find a provider, and they were far few in between. And then once you found one, you were going to pay out of pocket, and it was a lot of money. Kind of like right now, we don't have educational freedom in Georgia. So I travel across county lines pretty far to find a school for my one daughter that I can relatively afford, and I'm paying out of pocket for. Okay, same idea. So what happened? Medicaid, Georgia Medicaid specifically, started covering X amount of ABA therapy hours. So what we saw here in Georgia almost overnight was not only was every therapeutic center now providing ABA therapy, but now we have centers popping up all over the place that only provide ABA therapy. Why is that? It's like, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Now they know that it's no longer an issue of, well, this is an expensive therapy and not everyone can afford it and da-da-da-da-da. Now it's more of the funding is following the child. So let's just provide a place for them to come and bring those funds. And that's exactly what will happen. If we incentivize the private sector of education here in Georgia, we're going to incentivize every church, every pastor, every teacher that had a dream.
And let's be honest, there are private interests already involved in the education.
Thank you. Yes.
I completely get it, but go ahead. What you were saying?
And, you know, it's like a light bulb goes off in people's minds and they think, you know, it, it's really not that complicated. It's really not. But the problem is, again, all roads will lead back to the teachers unions. And you would hate to think, but unfortunately, I do think there's a high probability that a lot of these lawmakers on both sides of the aisles are heavily influenced by the unions. Georgia is not a unionized state, but they still very much have a presence here. And when the unions are messing with and manipulating a lot of our federal funds that come into the public schools, I mean, it's a messy, messy web. Um, when you dismantle their arguments, the only thing that I can come up with, that they're still not getting it is who paid you, who donated to your campaign. Why? This is not rocket science, especially as Republican legislators, especially with the GOP ballot numbers, especially when we saw Youngkin and DeSantis, and in Arizona is killing it with the school choice game. They have the most expansive forms of school choice now in the state of Arizona. They really are the shining example of what I would like to see for the rest of the country, especially here in Georgia.
Yeah.
But there's really no excuse. There's no excuse. Georgia is now ranked 37 out of all 50 states by way of education. It's not necessary.
No.
Why is it that the states that have more expansive school choice tend to rank higher? The numbers don't lie.
No, because that state is doing business, and we should be doing business on behalf of what's the best interest of our children. And like you say, it will incentivize us for people to say, "Shoot, let me build a school over here." Then you will get private funds going into that because now these kids, the money is following them, but it's because of the schools are upholding the value that the parents want, just like any other thing. I mean, they look at our kids as a product or whatever, or a subject anyway. So it's like, let's let the money follow the kid. And if it's a school over here, like I said earlier, that's failing, let me pull my money out of that, because that's a dumpster fire. Our hard-earned money is going down the tube. The kid is not going to have the education that he or she needs to be able to survive. Exactly. So I think school choice is a great idea, definitely to have on the table. And would you be willing to commit to maybe giving a weekly action that people need to take? Maybe, I know you put things into the group all the time, but we need to give the people, that the viewers and listeners, action that they need to do. So would you be willing to do that? So, okay, so we'll maybe have you come up with something, this action of the week, and throw it out on whatever day. We'll make sure the War Room listeners get that action so they can start getting involved and getting out here, getting in the fight. And a lot of them, they are, but a lot of times we need direction, and we need to make sure we move in lockstep, because that's what the people that are, in my opinion, trying to take down the schools are doing. Like, they're moving in lockstep. They want to get you with social and emotional learning. They want to teach your kids things that are, too mature for them, for lack of better terms. And teach it that every white person is inherently racist and all this, just crazy stuff. It's like, this stuff is not going to carry these kids when they leave school. They need to learn trades, and I don't think every kid needs to go to college. I mean, I went to school. Right. I got a bachelor's degree in information technology. I never used a degree, and I'm not discouraging people to go to college, but I think that's something that the parents really should sit down with the child and figure out what it is that they want to do with the rest of their life. And, and it might not include going $100,000 into debt for something that they may not be interested in. And if you can find something that they want to do that's not, quote unquote, work for them, they can maybe able to get paid to do something that they enjoy. A lot of people I know went to college, they got degrees, they hate what they do, and they got a bill to go with it. Which is completely insane. So, ladies and gentlemen, Holly, Terei, it's been great having you on the show. Can you tell people right now where to find you, anything that you want to share as far as people can connect with you?
So for all things school choice, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter, Georgians for School Choice. We have local chapters. There's one for Gwinnett County. Just put in Georgians for School Choice Gwinnett County, and there you will find all things pertaining to school choice, hyper specific to our particular county. And then for our group, Gwinnett County Parents for Quality Education, under the banner of No Left Turn, you can find us on Facebook. You can also find amazing resources to help fight and combat some of these educational issues on nolefturn.us. And then I am super easy to find. You can find me on social media. Feel free to shoot me an email anytime. You can email me at hterei@gmail.com. And I just look forward to working with y'all in the future. And it's a happy new year, but also
Yes.
be in mind that session has started.
Yes, we got a lot of work to do. Yes.
That's right. So
no
let's
days
do it.
off. No
That's
days
right.
off. Sick days only. Hang on a minute, Holly. I want to make sure I shout out this company. Gold Standard Consumer Consultants, LLC. If you're seeking professional assistance in navigating your business or consumer realm, look no further. As a highly experienced consumer consultant, Gold Standard is dedicated to helping you achieve your desired outcomes. Whether you're a consumer or a business owner, they have the resources and expertise to provide you with the best possible guidance and support. The answers that they don't have to your problems, they'll work tirelessly to find a solution. Don't hesitate to contact them. Get started on achieving your goals with Gold Standard Consumer Consultants. Their phone number is 904-580-4034. That's 904-580-4034. Again, that's 904-580-4034. Miss Holly, it's been a pleasure. We're looking forward to chopping a lot of wood in 2023. We got a lot of work to do. I appreciate, respect what you do. And everybody that's following you, that's a part of your cause, just give them a shout out and let them know that we appreciate all the work that they're putting in.
We'll do. Thank you so much.
Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next video.
War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice.